Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm Katie, a member of the CK-12 team, and my colleague Carl and I will be running today's webinar, Teaching Strategies for Using CK-12. We're so glad you've joined us. So a reminder that this webinar is a core session for the CK-12 Certified Educator program. So there is an assignment for this session, which can be found in the CEP FlexBook. Please be sure to preview the questions and make sure you're set to answer them, as you will need to work your way through the assignment in one sitting once you click Start Quiz. Like our other sessions, we encourage you to use the chat window as you all have been doing. In Zoom, just make sure to select all panelists and attendees to share that content with everyone. And the Q&A window is for questions for the CK-12 team. That helps us track answers and make sure we get to all of your questions. We've created a handy resource page for each webinar session. You can find it at the matching section of our CEP FlexBook or at the tiny URL listed on the screen, tinyurl.com/CK12strategies2019, which we'll put in the chat window right now. We hope you can use it after as a reference for when you are working on the assignment or editing FlexBooks throughout the year. So in this webinar, we'll be sharing easy to implement teaching strategies, which will cover our new FlexBook 2.0 platform, intervention tools, homework, and literacy. Our main goal is that by the end of this session, you come away with specific and actionable strategies to engage your students using CK-12 resources. Before we get into the core content of this webinar, it would be great if we found out a little bit more about your previous experience using CK-12 resources. So you'll see a poll here in just a second, and it will ask you about your previous use of different CK-12 resources. Please select all that apply. It asks, have you used the CK-12 FlexBooks 2.0 platform, FlexBooks in general, interactives, our PLIX or Sims, our adaptive practice, study guides, videos, real-world applications, or you have not used CK-12 with your students yet because you're just joining us and learning about it this summer. So I'm going to pause for a few seconds. It looks like about half of you have answered. We'll keep giving you guys time to work your way through. Getting up there, close to 80%. We'll give you another few seconds to kind of select all the ones that match up, and then we'll end that and share those results. So go ahead and click submit if you haven't submitted your answers. And with that, we will end this poll. And it looks like many of you are new to CK-12. You haven't used it yet, but there's actually kind of a scattering of different things that you might have used as you work your way through. So I think with that, I'm going to switch over and let Carl take over, and he will go from there.
Well, good afternoon. Last year, we did launch our FlexBook 2.0 platform, which we think is the next generation of digital personalized learning. We have now moved FlexBooks from linear digital textbooks to an intelligent learning platform. At the heart of the 2.0 platform is artificial intelligence and machine learning, which offer a personalized journey for each student. Everything needed is now all in one lesson. No more searching all around the CK-12 website. All the content has been specifically curated for that course. Finally, the 2.0 platform can now be accessed from any device or using a browser at ck12.org. So now we've arrived at the really exciting part of this session, real teaching strategies that you can use in your classroom. Whenever I go to an educator conference, I always hope there's a couple of real things that I can use in my classroom the next week. If it's all theoretical, it's hard for me to justify that it's worth my time. So for the rest of this session, we'll be discussing the real ways that you can implement immediately for using CK-12. So here's a list of some of the things that we'll be talking about today. As you can see, we're going to talk about first, like creating and assigning FlexBook 2.0 and then linking to some things in that. We'll be once again talking about these really wonderful inline questions with our real-world applications, and then the embed function, which is really powerful, that bringing in content from around the internet. Then we'll talk about PLIX and Sims, and finally our standards browser. So the first strategy is actually the most powerful and can be completed in just a few hours. Create a FlexBook 2.0 matching your scope and sequence. Now, you might be saying, this doesn't sound like a simple, easy to use and implement strategy. But we had one of our guest panelists from Poway was talking about how she made a FlexBook for her class in 10 minutes. She took the CK-12 book and quickly changed the title, of course, made a couple of changes of chapters that she wasn't going to cover, and then that's what she gave to our book. And she literally told us in the case study about professional development that it took her 10 minutes. So step one is choose a FlexBook 2.0, reorder the chapters, then you can make a customized book in less than a day, in fact, in less than an hour. So don't think that this is this big thing that you have to like sit down and dedicate a week of your life or whatever, because like it says there, you can continue to improve your FlexBook throughout the year. It's like an old car that you keep tinkering with. So please consider this to be the one thing that I want you to take away today. And I'm going to say that a couple more times, but this one is powerful because for you to have customized content that directly matches your scope and sequence of your course, that's what we do here at CK-12. And once you're in the FlexBook 2.0, we can use our intelligence to really give you something powerful.
When I was a kid, I could never understand how electrons kind of move through, a bulb. How does that happen? In reality, a teacher doesn't really teach a book. A really teacher is teaching a concept in a book.
So students set goals for their learning. The teacher set up the conditions for all the available resources, which is, 10 different kids in one class may take 10 different paths and approach the resources in CK-12 in 10 different ways.
It provides kids who maybe learn more traditionally a method, who maybe need a visual aid, a method. For example, we're doing factoring today and we're learning about algebra tiles, and some kids are like, oh, now I understand it, whereas yesterday maybe they weren't. Picking up the concept is easy.
If you think about, as a teacher, you want to teach someone the grain that you can teach so that you can build on that knowledge.
By breaking down a subject into different concepts, the teacher can pick and choose a curriculum that is in the order and at the level that they want.
I love CK-12 content because it provides a starting point for me. If I feel my students need more background on a subject or a concept, it gives me a place to search for concepts to reinforce what we were learning that were maybe not embedded originally in the lesson, but that were provided through CK-12 website in general.
So we'd love teachers to think about moving to the concept-based learning so you can catch where the gaps lie for each student.
All right. Well, thank you, Niru. Yeah, Niru really had vision there to figure out that if we could break down learning into bite-sized concepts, this would really be able to offer an opportunity for students to learn something deeply while giving us the opportunity to identify gaps. So it's been since 2012 that we've been focused on concept-based learning, and our new FlexBook 2.0 platform really takes that to the ultimate limit. So next, the next idea that we're going to share with you is assign a FlexBook 2.0 lesson as a supplement. So let's say I'm using Engage New York or CPM. I could then assign the kind of equivalent lesson from a FlexBook 2.0 book to my students. It offers a variety of great content, often presented in a slightly different way than my core curriculum, let's say. So this is a supplement. But the nice thing is then students, by assigning this lesson, of course, not only do they get the learning environment of the lesson, but they get our wonderful adaptive practice, which builds on their knowledge. It figures out where they are, and then it builds on what they do, identifying gaps along the way and offering content to help fill in the gaps. And then you, the teacher, gets insights on how the students are doing and who's struggling, and that's all presented there in the 2.0 lesson. So this is a really great thing that you should do even if you're not using CK-12 as a core curriculum. Next, I really encourage you to use links to our concept pages, but more importantly to our FlexBook 2.0 pages. So a lot of you in the past have used our concept pages, which covered the whole kind of learning, the whole spectrum of learning on that concept, maybe from middle school through the end of high school. But now I think it's a better thing is to find the FlexBook 2.0 lesson start page, which then is your portal into that concept in the course that you're teaching. And you can see there, not only is there a big start button to get into the lesson, but also you have other ways of learning, related modalities. And these are really important because sometimes the student's not in the mood to read and process academic text, especially a whole lesson of it. And they might need to watch a video or two to kind of set themselves up for success in that lesson. So I encourage you, find the concept or the lesson in the 2.0 book and share the URL of that start page with your students, but also with your parents. In this past year, we've been so excited about this next strategy because our inline questions have allowed all students to kind of get over the mini hurdles during a lesson. And what these are questions that you can put in a lesson, which then allows the students to figure out misconceptions. If they give a wrong answer, they're given feedback on what was wrong with that answer. These are learning tools which really help students learn. Now, the other thing I'll say for the teacher is that, when I have 35 students in my class, I don't have time during the lesson multiple times to go around and check in with every student. So the inline questions do just that. And I really think this is an important thing. So one of the main benefits of this is that the students get instant feedback. And this is really important because they don't have to wait until they do the practice at the end of the lesson. Along the way, they're getting feedback. And you can create inline questions yourself based on what you feel is important from that lesson. So anybody can put these together and you can put them into your lessons at the key moments when you need to check for understanding. I also want to encourage you to think of these inline questions as a great exercise for your top students, your advanced students to do. Imagine telling like the top group of 4, I need you to make some questions that are going to test the knowledge on this chapter, on this lesson rather, and then they come up with the questions, but also the answers, and then the feedback on the wrong answers. I think we couldn't create a better activity for my advanced students to do because this requires deep knowledge of this lesson in order to be able to create the inline questions. So I encourage all of you to put your advanced students on this and take that work away from something you have to do. They can build it right on the CK-12 platform, and then all you have to do is insert that quiz into your content there. So these are inline questions that your students can build. We have gotten so much great feedback on our real-world applications, RWAs, and you've probably heard about them several points during the last 2 weeks. I think we have about 2,500 of these, and they are great ways of answering a student's question, when am I ever gonna use this? And because the bottom line is the real-world applications are truly the applications in the real world of a specific content. So engage students with ideas from their lives. I often like using a real-world application as a warm-up, as a way of bringing them into this concept, giving them something tangible, understandable from their lives, and bringing them into the concept. The other thing that's really great about these is you can use them to model and analyze, which are, really important skills in both Common Core and NGSS, or whatever your system is that you're using, your set of standards. So please go take a look at these, and you'll notice that some concepts have multiple RWAs, and you can use these as a great starting point to add into your content. So another thing that we've got here is PLIX, and PLIX stands for Play, Learn, Interact, Explore, and we have them for all the branches of math and science. And these are just spectacular. Also, like the real-world applications, these are a great way to use to start your class. Use them as a warm-up. have them assigned to your students, and your students know when they come into class, they're going to go check out what the assignment is. And this is often a really good way. Here's a calculus or pre-calc concept that you can, the vertical line test. And they're going to go and move that red line around and see how many times does a function or a squiggle intersect that red line to figure out, is it a function or not? Then there's follow-up questions, and so it's a really great activity for them. You can also use it in the middle of a class, kind of as more of a discussion. You can have 2 students on one PLIX, or you can use it as an exit ticket to figure out, did I learn this? Am I ready to go on? The last question that's always presented in a PLIX is an open discussion question. And this is where we encourage the students to think deeply. There's never a right or wrong answer presented, but you can use it as a writing prompt. You can do a think, pair, share, or even some of these discussions link directly to our cafe, where in the PLIX forum, you can see that we've got a discussion already happening. So here's an example of one. If the train started to climb at an elevation of 0 feet instead of 10 feet, how would the equation of the track change? And this, it's kind of an extension of what had been done in that specific PLIX. So if you haven't taken a look at these, go ahead and take a look at them, because I think they're really powerful. And as I said, because we have them for each branch of math and science, there's something there for you already waiting for you. We have not made these for any other, other branches beyond math and science. So unfortunately, it's a tool that specifically works well for those. Our simulations, at this point in your certified educator program, you've probably heard a lot about them. This morning, tomorrow morning, Katie and Sonia will be doing a whole session, a live session at 9 o'clock California time. If you haven't checked these out yet, go ahead and join the session tomorrow. But these are just wonderful. A PLIX takes a single simple idea of a concept, usually with one variable, and with the simulations, we dig much deeper into it. And I know a lot of people, as they've been trying to figure out how to implement NGSS, are using our simulations to go get their students to think like a scientist. They always start with an opening question, a guiding question. Then there's a short little explanation in the form of a video. Then, like in the bottom picture here, you've got this great opportunity, a nice sandbox to go play in. You can use these simulations yourself as a demo in the front of the classroom, or you can have the students work on them in partners or individually. It can be as short or as long as you want it. I've seen where some teachers have spent a whole period working with the simulation, because not only do they present this idea, then there's extension ideas on top of that, which really get the students figuring out, how else can I see this? What other places in our world can I see this concept based on what I've learned here today? So these are great. And then in addition, we've got electronic and PDF companion worksheets, but we also have tutorial videos that walk a teacher through the simulation. Because they are complex, it's nice to hear from a peer. Nice to hear from a teacher who knows the simulation well, knows the concept well, and indeed is giving you advice for presenting it. So with any of our interactives, whether the PLIX interactives or the simulations, these are great things to do. Finally, in this section, I want to talk about the standards browser. And we've recently relocated this under the Explore menu. So if you click the top Explore menu from the home page, you'll see both Common Core and NGSS. And these are examples of what you can find, for example, in high school geometry, where it lists out the standard, and then it shows you the corresponding concepts on CK-12 that has great content to support that standard. Here at NGSS, we have physical science, and once again, we list out the standard and we point you to all the great content on CK-12. We've tried to make this as easy for you as possible. The other thing that you might want to do is work backwards, and you put in the standard into the search bar, and then CK-12 serves up content based on that standard. We've tagged our own content that way, but now what I'm seeing is as people develop content for their own national standards in foreign countries, or even the International Baccalaureate or IGCSE, whatever the standard, if you can put the tag in your content, that will be served up in search, and that's really powerful. So, take a few moments and see how you can use our standards browser, because often it's not something that people know about, and then once they see it, they're like, I wish I had seen this before. So that's our first set of wonderful ideas that we've put together here for the first part of this easy to implement teaching strategies. Do we want to pause here and see if there's any questions? Let's go.
Sure, we have a couple of questions that are coming in. One is asking in terms of kind of combining books and going from there. You are going to want to have different options. It says if you add a FlexBook from one thing to another, and how does that work? Can I make an integrated book? What are my options?
Sure, and I encourage you, if you haven't attended the advanced FlexBook editing, this is a great one. You can, of course, we're not offering that one anymore, but you can go back and rewatch that, the archive version, on links through the book, or you can find them on our YouTube channel. But let me just quickly go live here, and let me share with you my screen, and we'll talk briefly about what that is. So I'm going to pull up in my library an existing 2.0 book, and I'm going to say, just show me 2.0 books. And there it is. And here's one here, Physical Science for Middle School. So let's say that I'm using this book now, and I've already customized it. I didn't change the name, but I can go edit this. And of course, I can move things around, and I can do all of that stuff that we've learned in other sessions throughout the program. But what I want to show you here is you can go to other content on CK-12, either as 1.0 or 2.0 content. And I'm going to go back to my library here, and I'm going to pull out some other stuff that I had saved at some point. And I've got Windows covering Windows here. All your good questions are on top of everything now. All right, here's my library. So let's go inside of this book here. This is a read. Let me go look at just reads. All right, and so let's go into RWA example. So here's this, let's say there was stuff there. This is a very basic one, of course. Let's say I wanted to add this lesson into a FlexBook. All you have to do is simply click on this button here, and then it brings up all of my books, and I can add it to any of the books that I want. So if you haven't had a chance to play around with this, it's really easy to use. And then as you find more content on CK-12, it's easy to add that content and then move it around to different chapters and things, all in your new book. So take a look at that. All right, Katie, another question?
Yeah, so we had a couple different questions about inline questions or creating quizzes. You can write your own questions in our system. There's kind of a text editor field. There's all sorts of options to make your own inline questions or make your own quizzes. And I would recommend that you do that. Definitely check out the customizing CK-12 session. The recording of that's live. And that will kind of help you work your way through that process. And then we have a couple of questions in terms of, we have one that says, how do you change the level of learning? So maybe you want to address kind of differentiating learning within our system.
Sure. So one of the things that you'll discover as you're looking around CK-12, like if it's a topic that's addressed in more than one course, for example, in middle school, like motion's addressed in physical science, and then later's motion is addressed in physics. If I know I have a group of students who are reluctant readers or second language learners, I might want to start them out and pull content and assign maybe the read from the physical science book. Okay, and I can assign that to a class or a subgroup, a differentiated group. And this might be easier for them to digest at first, and then I'll assign them the motion from physics in our course, which then they'll have enough foundational knowledge that they'll be able to succeed there. So there's a lot of, I always talk about creating maybe some differentiated groups like the purple group, the green group, and the blue group. And my purple group is the one maybe that struggles a little bit more with Lexile level. They are maybe at like 5th grade level instead of 9th grade level. So I can assign them a different set of things in order to get them kind of going. And I can create a separate assignment for just them, but I still can create an assignment for the whole class too. So there's lots of different ways to differentiate.
So there's a question about kind of accessing content. We had a request to like slow down a bit as we go through stuff. So we'll make sure that we kind of click slowly as we go through. But the content from various books on one page, I'm guessing you were talking about the concept page that he was at. You can access any of our broader concept pages through our search option, or you can find all those related modalities within a particular FlexBook 2.0 lesson. So hopefully that addresses that piece there. And it looks like we're getting different questions kind of as we go through. Maybe we'll continue to plow through some of these in text as Carl continues, and then also go through and answer some more throughout this process. So let me go ahead and steal this screen back, and I'm going to share the keynote again, and we will go from there.
Yeah, and I know that this is a kind of overwhelming session at times because I'm showing you a lot. So make sure that you understand. I would prefer if you just sit back and kind of absorb what we're doing here, because we're going to archive that. You can always go back, but often I'm just talking, I need to get through a lot of good ideas here. So to make sure that we've got the ability to make sure that you understand of the power that's waiting here. So the one other thing that I want to talk to you about is Twitter is a great educator resource. And often if I speak into a big crowd of people, of educators, I'm amazed at how few of you use Twitter. And so this is my plea to say, go give it a try. It often, like I've written here, combat teaching isolation. Sometimes a school only has one physics teacher, and it's hard to connect and kind of create a community. Twitter is a great place for community that you can start following leaders in that area, these experts that really know, I have great ideas and they share their best practices with you. So, join Twitter. Immediately follow at CK-12 Foundation, because we'd love to keep giving you some ideas, but also there's some really great hashtags that you should follow, like I'm suggesting here: blended learning, personalized learning, OER, open educational resources, Go Open, which is an OER campaign that really has a bunch of teachers and districts and schools from all around the country coming together and committing to using more OER products. Another one is 21st Century Skills, Ed Tech. And if you're a math teacher, if hashtag math, you'll be amazed at what you see there. Of course, you can go more specific, like elementary math, middle school math, high school math. Science Chat or SciChat is a really great science one that you should try. And you'll just be amazed at how inspiring this is, because you see people that are kind of doing what you're doing and having great successes and sharing them. Finally, hashtag STEM is a really good one too to do. And I want to encourage you, go onto our forum, the Jumpstart for Educators forum, and share other hashtags or people that you like to follow in education, because this is where our forum really pays off. The sharing of ideas like great hashtags or great people to follow on Twitter. So if you are not using Twitter in the next couple weeks, I strongly encourage you to go explore this great resource that if you're not using, you're missing out. All right, so let's get caught up here. Our next session of easy to implement teaching strategies will show you how to use CK-12 as an intervention covering adaptive practice, pre-post assessments, and differentiated classes for all levels. All right, adaptive practice. Hopefully at this point you've seen that our adaptive practice is truly our secret sauce. It is something that every teacher should be using. And now that it's so integral to the FlexBook 2 learning platform, it should be easy to use. The bottom line is the students are learning at the appropriate level, because in the first 3 questions, our system determines what level each of your students are at. Then it offers questions, and as it identifies gaps, it offers content to fill in the gaps. And I always say we've got a large variety of content to fill in gaps. And I've heard people say, yeah, and Khan has practice now, but Khan can only offer videos, and maybe videos aren't always the best solution to fill in a gap for a student. At CK-12, we've got a whole bunch of different ways to fill in the gap, including our PLIX and our simulations and lessons and real-world applications. There's so much that we can offer your students. Then there's reports to help students and teachers understand what's going on. And it's so easy to use, as I've mentioned, because it's when you assign a lesson in FlexBook 2.0, the associated practice comes along with it. So other than customizing a 2.0 book for this next year, the other thing I really want you to think about is using the adaptive practice with your students, and you'll see what a difference it makes. For me, I think this is one of the 2 takeaways that I want you to really get from today is we have other sessions, of course, that deal with getting started with CK-12 practice, and then there's another one, customizing adaptive practice. So if you didn't have a chance to watch those as part of the live sessions, they are available, and I really encourage you to go ahead and look at those. All right, another feature is using the CK-12 platform for pre and post tests. We call them quizzes, but you can use them as a pre and a post test. It's very easy to create questions on CK-12 using the CK-12 the question bank, but you can also add in your own questions to match exactly what you're teaching. So if you don't see the questions there that you need, it's very easy to create them, and you can create a variety of questions. They all don't have to be multiple choice or true and false. You can create some deeper level questions. But the idea is you can use these pre and post tests to really see where your students are before they go through the chapter, and you can see where they are afterward. And this is great for showing growth. So in this next section, we're going to be talking about how to use CK-12 for homework. So we've just been talking about adaptive practice, and the idea here is that we've got an opportunity to use adaptive practice for homework. Of course, it's so much better than sending home a worksheet from a major publisher, because the problem with a worksheet is if the kid already knows it, they don't need to do the worksheet. And if the kid doesn't know it, they can't do the worksheet. So it's not like it's a great learning tool for the student. So the benefit of the CK-12 adaptive practice is that it adapts to each one of your students. And what I've seen that I think is really successful, you can assign it daily, but I've seen where the teacher said, okay, here are the 6 concepts that we covered this week, have all the adaptive practice done by Friday. And that they give them the goal, and there's some flexibility then that the students have to get it done. One of the things that I encourage you to do is let your students answer the adaptive practice on the phone. It works very well, and that way they can use their computer in reference as they're doing it. So they can have the lesson brought up on their screen and on their computer, on their Chromebook, and then on their phone they can be doing the questions. There are hints available, and I strongly encourage you to use the hints, because these were written by actual teachers that we said, if you were going to do a drive-by hint for a student, what would you suggest that you say? And often the hint is another question, which is, we know is a great way of helping a student, is by asking a leading question. So I really encourage you to use the adaptive practice. And I know that some people will be saying at this point, but not all my students have internet. And the good news is more and more students are getting internet outside of class, and their districts are doing great things to kind of help their students get that access. I'll use as an example, Gretna schools in Nebraska actually send their students home who don't have internet with a little MiFi device, which allows them to log in to the internet at their home. And so, I would encourage you, if you had ideas for getting internet for your students, it's a great topic to discuss in the CK-12 Cafe Jumpstart for educators. So share them there, and that will help other students, other teachers. I know that I flipped my classroom with several of my courses over the years. And if you have not done it, flipping your classroom is easy with CK-12 because you want the students to do foundational work at home so that when they get to class, you can dig deep into the concept because they've already got the foundational knowledge. And when I flip my classroom, like in a geometry class, I recorded these dorky little videos and put them on YouTube, and the students enjoyed watching those. They were short, 8 to 10 minutes, but if you don't have time to record your own, use the videos on CK-12. And you can flip your classrooms using those. You can assign a PLIX. Instead of doing it as a warm-up, have it be a pre-activity the night before. And then once you pair it with our adaptive practice, you can really see how well your students are learning. So definitely think about flipping your classroom with CK-12. In this next section, we'll be talking about improving literacy, highlighting in annotations, foreign language support, and involving parents. So let's go take a look at that.
A student has more than one learning modality, learns through multiple modalities. A feature that CK-12 provides is the highlighting with different colors. So I'm able to not only emphasize a key point, but I'm able to assign it to a specific color that can also trigger maybe another memory for them.
So you can see there, highlighting is really powerful. As a lot of our students struggle, we have this feature which allows them to approach academic texts using skills that they're building. So as Anna was saying, we saw, like Lindsay and I were in Anna's classroom and saw her students systematically approaching the text. And I think this is really important because they in one color, let's say yellow, they do the thesis statement of the lesson. And then everything that supports it, they put in a different color like blue. And then she has them write a 2-sentence summary of each lesson. So if it's about linear equations, then she has them in their own words put this in. And then within the 2.0 platform, like you can see here in this picture, you've got all the summary of everything that's been highlighted and all the notes that they've been written. And this is a really concise way to help them study their notes and also help them study for quizzes. So maybe I let my students, just for a few moments before I give a quiz, go look at your notes and highlights in each one of the lessons that this quiz is covering, and it makes sure that they can understand what's going on there. So I think that's super, super powerful. All right, foreign language support. And this one is, I think, where we knock it out of the park, because it is really easy on any lesson in CK-12 to use the built-in Google Translation to translate it into a variety of languages that may be the home language of the student. And this, while some people would argue it's not perfect, it helps the students understand. And I've been in classrooms where the student will have the FlexBook open on their phone in their home language. And then they would pair that, once again, with the laptop, which is in English, kind of helping them learn the academic language that they're missing. So they're using kind of dual screening it in order to get there. And, like I said, I cannot overemphasize this, that it is a really, really powerful thing to see. And we'll do a little demo of this in just a few moments. But for me, this is where it all kind of comes together. And then, once again, involving parents using CK-12. Now, it's really easy to support a parent's home language because of this translation thing. So we love that teachers are sharing content with parents and then offering them and teaching them, look, all you have to do is go down to the bottom and change the language, and parents have a better understanding. Now, my son went to Berkeley High School, and I have to tell you that I didn't see him bring home a book ever in mathematics. And he used a lot of like Google PDFs and things that are stored in a Google form that I had no access to. And as a parent, that was pretty frustrating because, you know, I'm a math teacher and I want to be able to be more connected with what was being covered. So the benefit of using a FlexBook is that it's a book. It has a table of contents. Parents, you can share the URL of the book with the parents, and they can follow along and be a part of their students' education. So for me, this is CK-12 really supports parents and makes things really work well. The other thing that you can share, like I said, is those concept page links or also the start page links as a way of involving parent. Imagine on Monday morning, you send out links to all the concepts that you're covering that week. Direct links. So the parents just click on it, open, and they're like, oh yeah, like FOIL or, you know, binomial multiplication, because they might not remember it's called binomial multiplication, but they remember FOIL. Okay, so, you know, be sure to use CK-12 to help connect your parents and engage them in what their students are learning. So I think we've got another video here.
I met a parent who was struggling with supporting his daughter because he did not speak English very well. So I brought up the CK-12 on my iPad. I quickly showed him how he can change the language, and he was nearly in tears, and he felt just so excited that now that he could help his daughter, which was emotional for me too, knowing that this is what CK-12 is about. This is what we want our parents, our language learners, no matter where they come from, no matter what language they speak, they need to find a place in our classroom, and CK-12 helps us to do that.
Yeah, thanks, Cynthia. We've been so impressed. Like in El Paso, of course, they have a lot of parents that speak Spanish, and you know their superintendent there, Juan Cabrera, has said we're not buying any more books. Instead, they're developing all their books on CK-12, and I want to show you this because I know we've shown a lot of this with you. You know, you might have seen this somewhere else, but I want to show you how to get to the schools page, for example, to find the content that El Paso has created. So I'm going to come down here under Explore from the home page, and that gives me the schools page. And then Cynthia's from El Paso in Texas. So let's go down to Texas. And let's go here. Here's Texas. That's Del Valle, El Paso. So here are the books that you can see that they've developed on CK-12. Some of the books, CK-12 provided the foundational content, but a lot of the other books like forensic science, you know, there are so many books here that we don't provide any of the content for. And I think that's really powerful. Here they have an advanced placement book on human geography, an advanced placement on government, advanced placement on macroeconomics. And once again, you can go in here right now. You can say, oh yeah, this is a great advanced placement book. But the cool thing is you can customize it and immediately start using everything they've developed so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. So let's say my high school is Wilson High School, and immediately I have a macroeconomics book. I don't have to pay $150 for a macroeconomics book. But the nice thing is that I can go in and I can actually make changes to any of this. So definitely spend some time there on the El Paso, Texas screen, because they have so much great content, including a Spanish 1 book, a Spanish 2 book, you know, so many books that you'll be looking for. The other thing I want to kind of show you is that you can use our search bar to search for something. So let's say I was looking for a history book and I just don't know what's out there, like a world history book is what I'm looking for. So I type in history, but there's filters over here that I strongly encourage you to use. So say only show me FlexBook 2.0 books, and show me books not only created by CK-12, but also this is a tab here, even though it kind of doesn't look like one. Click on that and you're going to see a bunch of different FlexBook 2.0s about history, and you can start there. So I would encourage you to use the search bar here and then select FlexBook 2.0 and you'll see a lot of great content once you click into what our community has contributed. All right, so Katie, I want to pause there and let's get some more questions.
Thanks, Carl. So we had a bunch of questions on differentiated instruction. So maybe I'll pull up a slide on that for just a split second. So you guys we can talk about that a little bit. One of the biggest questions has to do with kind of making different groups. There are options within CK-12, options within Canvas, options within Google Classroom and Schoology in terms of some of those learning management systems have places where you can assign content to individual students versus a whole class. But Carl's gonna maybe share a little bit more about how you might differentiate with multiple classes in our system.
Sure. So like I said before, I think if you use CK-12, regardless of which LMS you're using, but let's use CK-12 as our example, I might make a period 2 geometry class, okay? In addition to that, I might do differentiated groups where I've got my period 2 geometry purple group, and I've got my period 2 geometry blue group and my green group. And maybe I have different activities for each level of these groups of students. And then I can create assignments for each one of those. And I know, it kind of varies depending on, like Google Classroom, you can go through with any assignment and choose which student you want to assign it to and which one you don't. Within Schoology and Canvas, it works a little bit differently, but the idea is always the same. You don't always have to assign everything to everybody. That the nice thing is once you create assignments and assign to the students, all you have to say to your students is, go do your assignments on CK-12 or through Schoology or whatever, and then each student's working, and there's no stigma about it. The students aren't embarrassed because they're in the low achieving group or something. And you can still assign assignments to the whole class in addition to that. So this is definitely an area that CK-12 can excel in and really help your students feel comfortable about continuing their work. Is the work that you're assigning to them is at the right level. Another question?
So we have a question about adaptive practice. So if you change it to quiz, is it scored? How is that completed? Do you want to take that or you want me to take it?
I don't quite understand what the question is.
I will snag it. So the idea here is that you have adaptive practice that is scored with a goal of 10 correct. If you change that to a quiz, you can assign that quiz separately, and that is scored with a clean assessment percentage on that. So it's a little bit different in terms of like the goal, because practice is really encourage students to kind of continue to work their way until they are successful there. A quiz would be more of an assessment option, but you would need to assign that to get that score from there. Another question we have is about pre and post testing within the 2.0 platform. So maybe Carl, you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so what my suggestion might be is at the beginning of your chapter, as you start a new unit, go ahead and put together a quiz in the form of a pre-test. And you can turn off the hints and you can really make it as summative as you need to. But the idea is you put this together and it lives separately from our adaptive practice, okay? It is going to be a set of questions, like 20 questions of where you're going to be going in that chapter. And then at the end, you can have a post-test that's either the same or slightly different that you also give. Okay, and this once again can be as summative as you want, whether it's one try only or no, you don't provide the answers at the end. These are all things that you're in control of, and you'll find out more about them when you watch the session of Customizing Adaptive Practice. So I encourage you to do that. We see another question here is, have all the community books been vetted for accurate information? And this is a question that we do get all the time, and the answer is no. And let me just put this into perspective for you. I don't know if you've heard people talk about it, but we have 35 people in Palo Alto, California that make the magic happen for CK-12. And to date, we have over 200,000 books that have been customized on CK-12. So the reality is we just don't have the ability to vet everything. We feel like if you're on the CK-12 tab, you're getting quality content. When you're on the community contributed tab, it's check it out and decide for yourself if that's content that's useful to you. Because like I said, most probably it's content that you can use to not reinvent the wheel. You might have to go through it and change a couple things and maybe take out something you don't like, but most of the work has been done with you, done already. So please kind of buyer beware on the community contributed tab, but I have to tell you, there's some outstanding content under the community contributed content, in spite of the fact that 35 people at CK-12 didn't have an opportunity to look at it. I also saw another question about like importing the Australian standards. And I think this is, the one thing as you're creating your content, under the details tab, there's a tab, there's tabs that you can set up, and go ahead and put whatever standard it is that that lesson is addressing, so that anybody who types that in will be able to, that specific standard number will be able to find your content. So that's the way you can bring in your own standards, is by tagging your content with the specific standards. So, I go back to the example, if I type in 8.g.3 into the search bar on CK-12, it will find me Common Core grade 8 geometry content about translations and dilations. I know this. So just tag your content, you'll get there. Do we want to take one more question?
Yeah, we have a question about quiz banks. So all of our content within CK-12, all of our practice, we have about 150,000 practice questions. Most of them are math and science. We have some spelling as well. Those can be customized into quizzes on your own, or you can add questions. I've seen teachers create quizzes in random languages. I've seen teachers create questions for literature and history. So you are more than welcome to create your own, or you're more than welcome to, if you create a brand new quiz from scratch from your library, or if you customize any of our practice. So Carl's showing you create new quiz, that bumps you into our quiz editor, and you can pull a concept, or you could tag content to your own text that you have been working on. So all of those are options. It's not that you can kind of export our text, our like question bank. It's more that you can access it as you're using stuff and customizing content on CK-12.
Yeah, and this is really powerful, because you can come in and, once again, you don't have to reinvent the wheel if you don't want to, but the key thing is you can add in your own content here. And like, if I'm going to add an additional set, and then it says right here, create new questions. Okay, so I can create, it puts me in the question building environment. I can choose the type of question that I want to bring in. And, we have a lot of different types here that are really powerful. And I think you can have great responses from your students by creating your own questions.
And we had a question about accessing quizzes other teachers have created. Right now, quizzes don't really show up in other situations. So if you're creating a quiz for your student, but you can use that URL on there just like anything else within our system, and share that with a colleague, and they could assign your same quiz. They're not quite in the same way that you could take one and then customize it. It's a little more complicated on our end. But because that URL is shareable, it still falls under our same license. You want to make sure that anything you're adding to that fits under our license, but you have the option to share it via the URL, or just assign it directly to your students.
And I wanted to point out here how to keep students from seeing other answers. You have the option here of showing the solutions at the end or not, and that is a way that puts you in control, so that you can, whether you're using this as formative, and then you'd want the students to see the answers, or maybe if it's summative and that period 3 is after period 2 and you don't want them to all know the answers, then you can go ahead and not show solutions. Of course, you have options like shuffling the questions, so everybody's quiz doesn't appear in the same order, and setting a time limit or how many attempts you want, etc. So we try to give you some flexibility here to really create the type of assessment that you need.
And Carl, can you just go back one step? So we had someone who asked how you get to this screen that you're at. So in your library, you can access your library there. That's where you'd find all your quizzes. Right now, if he filters by quiz down there, you'll see all the ones that we've made so far. A lot of them are from the last few weeks of demoing, but you can create a new one from there, or you could go to practice and customize it directly. So all of those are options as we go.
Yeah, and I once again really want to say, I know we cover a lot in this one. The whole idea is I want to plant some seeds, and then we let them percolate in your brain for a little bit. But please do use the resource page on this one, because I kind of summarize each one of these each one of these teaching strategies that I've put together here. And keep that printed out, keep it by your desk, and kind of a week after starting to use CK-12 with your students, pull this out again and going, okay, what am I not using here? And and just know that we're going to have you think about these teaching strategies in general and how you're using CK-12 as part of the closing on-demand session that's coming up. So these are really important things, because we know this is how you're going to implement CK-12 here.
So why don't I take a second and I'm going to do, I know we're getting close to the end of the hour. We have some questions still coming into Q&A. I'll give Carl a chance to look at those, but I'm going to share my screen and go through a final couple pieces of logistics, and we can kind of wrap this webinar from there. So as we said, the tinyurl.com CK-12 Strategies 2019 is your go-to for this particular session. It has a bunch of the stuff that Carl talked about throughout this piece. So definitely check that out. It's also in our CEP FlexBook. There is an assignment for this session. Make sure that you are filling that out. If you want credit for this session, you attended live, then you can do the matching assignment. We have one more session coming up tomorrow morning. So if you're trying to get any final pieces into this program, try to join us for that, or join us again this fall if you just happen to discover the CEP late this week and are super excited to take more sessions. But for this session, make sure you do that session assignment. Also, please, please, please let us know how we're doing. Give us any feedback on this or other sessions. You can use that URL or access it in the CEP FlexBook. And our final ask kind of for you is to partner with us. So definitely start using our Common Core math books, the newest ones that have those inline questions embedded. We're working on getting them elsewhere. Use our other FlexBooks 2.0, use practice and quizzes, adopt CK-12 as your full curriculum, or use it kind of in conjunction with something else. And then we really recommend for all of you guys that are asking about elementary content or history content or all these pieces to start creating your own FlexBooks, adding that content in that you're writing, collaborate with other teachers, find content that fits under a license, see what other users have made and community contributed, and kind of continue to expand the wealth of resources on this site. And then the last two pieces, we invite you to come see us in action, share your story via text or on social media. We add testimonials on a regular basis. And the last part is, if you share feedback and student growth, tell us how we're doing, tell us what you like about our content and how your students might have changed over the years as you switch to CK-12. That student growth piece is really useful as other teachers and districts try to decide if they're going to use CK-12. They want to make sure that it's working for you. And so just email us if you want to collaborate more specifically. Otherwise, we invite you to kind of try all this stuff out. So I'm going to say thank you. Jumpstart@ck12.org is your go-to email for a lot of fun things and support. And then you can post hashtag CK12 certified. So it looks like we got a bunch of questions in here. I'm going to pass this over to Carl and he can go from there.
Great. And I'm also going to start out by stealing the screen back so that you can see some things that I demo here. So how dynamic are the official CK-12 books? Is community content ever assimilated into the base? And there's a great potential here for a living document that has the most up-to-date RWAs. Yeah, I think right now the way I'll answer this question is our flagship product now is truly what's in the FlexBook 2.0 platform. This is the newest, the best, and the brightest right there of CK-12. So if you are, for example, looking to start with biology, start with this FlexBook 2.0 biology book for the newest and the best. It is our version of a living document that's going to have as many of the newer features as we can. The math already has a lot of inline questions. Algebra 1, Laramie was showing this morning, is actually launching with them fairly soon, and all of the middle school 6, 7, and 8 all have them already. Math 6 and 7 are both launching in the next month. We're very excited for the new school year. And our science, they have not created the inline questions for them, but these are the books that you should pay attention to in order to be using the best. Now, you also asked about, are there any, does content from our users ever get brought in and has been vetted by us. And I'll say yes, if you look here, for example, science grade K-5, this was not created by CK-12, but in conjunction with CK-12 by a district in Florida, in Polk County Schools. And so this is an example where they worked with us to create some content that we didn't have, and we then ingested it as part of our CK-12 based content. So yes, that does happen. All right, somebody asked, well, why must things be archived instead of deleted? Well, I think our friends at Google have told you that, have shown that as an example, because you don't really ever delete on Google, it just gets archived there. And the reason is that way, if you change your mind, it's still available, okay? The only thing, it just takes up a little space here, and that's fine. We don't mind that, but we'd like to be able to offer it to you if you change your mind about that. There's a question here about searching for community books. For example, they talk about forensics. So let's go do that right now. Forensics. So once again, the first thing it does is pulls up a variety of content about forensics. And I'm going to see there, at this point, there are no FlexBook 2.0s that are about forensics. So I want to go to the original FlexBooks because I could always pull that content in. Now, still don't see anything. What you have to remember to do is click over here under Community Contributed. And that's where you're going to find full textbooks about forensics that are available to you. And you can see Poway down in the San Diego area. There's so many different places that have used, I think, versions of EPISD's book or made their own. So definitely don't forget to choose the Community Contributed when looking for entire books about the topics that you're searching for. All right, and then it looks like we have one final question. I have a question about quizzes that are embedded on the FlexBook 2. Should they be accessible in the student edition, or we have to assign them from the student edition? For the teacher edition? I asked because I run into a situation where I thought it was in the student book, but it was only in the teacher edition. Yeah, okay, Katie's gonna go ahead and answer that.
So inline questions in our new FlexBook 2.0, especially in the math books, because there is no teacher edition for our science book, we're working on those, so I'm assuming you're talking about math. Those inline questions aren't assigned. Those are really a learning tool for students. I know that some of the teacher resources for math have quizzes that we made, kind of like an end of a lesson quiz that you can assign to your students. You would need to assign that separately if you want to get a score report for that. They're in that teacher's edition as kind of like an extra reference or extra resource for you to use. Anything included in that 2.0 lesson that has the main lesson and the attached practice, when you assign that, you are assigning the attached practice. You're not assigning any separate quiz. So you would need to pull that as a resource and assign it directly.
And our final question is, can you contact the author in the community created book? If you don't see an email address for them there, feel free to email us and we can forward your email to them if we know, if we have an email address for them. But I don't think we're going to give out their email address on their behalf. But feel free to contact support and we can put your query and get it to them some way. I just want to say this is my last session here of these 2 weeks of the Certified Educator program, and I'm so impressed with what you guys have been learning and the questions you've been answering, or asking rather, and I think please continue this conversation in our cafe, and I'm going to show you once again how to get there. It's from the Explore menu cafe, and then you come down here, Jumpstart for Educators. If you haven't been there yet, it is a great resource where these conversations can continue. I answer questions in there and other people at CK-12. We are a part of this community, and we really want to help you create the best personalized learning journey for all of your students. So thank you so much for being here today. We really appreciate it. And make sure you finish your certification. Don't get this far and then don't get certified. We really want to be able to get that certificate to you and brag about the hard work that you've been doing. So thanks so much.